back to another edition of the Pagcast. This is a special edition. I'm not doing an interview right now. I'm with my NHL analyst, Nolan Thode. Nolan, thank you again for coming on. We've done this a couple of times. This format obviously is weird. I would say that we're actually quite used to it because Zoom is the new normal. It's part of the new normal. Nolan, thank you again for coming on. What have you been up to during quarantine?
Not a whole lot, I got that part-time job at McDonald's and I haven't been back there, I took a leave of absence because my parents just wanted me out of work and I haven't gone back. So after school ended, it's just been a lot of, video games. Sports have helped in the last week since they've come back and I've been in my cottage. So it's nice to enjoy the outside while I can. It's good being out here because with all the restrictions that are on, it's kind of like it's normal out here, just going out and enjoying the day on the good old Muskoka Lakes,
And getting into our, discussion here, like you said, you are quarantining at the cottage. What have you been doing during the day?
I mean, during the day, it depends. So I was up here with pretty much my family, and then I have a guest with me, Curtis Collins, co-manager of the Hayden hockey team. But pretty much just boating, jet skiing around, getting a lot of swimming in, just whatever I can do to stay active. We brought the Xbox up too. And so we've been live streaming a bunch of MLB games too. So it's been good. We've been keeping ourselves busy for sure.
And with MLB, they have injected the crowd noise, which NHL has done as well. What are your whole thoughts on that?
I mean, as a sports fan, I personally like it just because, I don't know, when you're watching a game, most of the time you're watching, but there are times where maybe you'll be focused on something else. And if there's no crowd noise, really, you don't really know what's going on. But sometimes, back before the pauses of everything, if I would watch a game, say I'd be on my phone and have a hockey game on, I'd hear the crowd start to get ramped up and I'd know to look and it'd be an exciting part of it. And I think it just adds an element. Obviously, a lot of people were excited for hearing the sounds of the players on the ice. I know you were specifically, but I do think having the crowd noise, it just makes it feel a little more authentic, even though it's not the ideal, but definitely, I'm definitely in favor of it.
I was looking forward to hearing the chirps, to hearing all that trash talk, because with this whole coronavirus pandemic, it has brought something upon us that with sports we've never seen before as sports fans. We can actually hear the authentic crack of the bat or the authentic rim around the boards with the puck. So it's something special for me and for every sport fan to hear what we are hearing today.
Mm-hmm. When it first came out, the formatting and stuff like that, without any fans, I saw some comparison. It's going to be like a high school hockey game. And it kind of is, really. There are fans at high school hockey, but for the most part, it's just you're in the arena, you can hear all the sounds, and it's definitely special.
Well, with that high school hockey point, it sucks because as of right now, as we're recording it on July 30th, there hasn't been an announcement by HSSAA or OFSA regarding high school sports, fall sports, winter sports, spring sports, all of that nonsense, or not nonsense, but all that topic. And I'm just hoping that in the coming days we get some sort of announcement because all of these athletes have to train for their sports.
Exactly. It's going to be a very tough year. And for myself, I play hockey, so I don't know what's going to happen with any league that I would be able to participate in. And you got to think, we're in a prime age. We're in grade 12. And for us, it's academically. But for the people that are athletes, this would be a huge year for them. This is their last chance at maybe getting a scout's attention. And now this has happened. And I think could be a prediction, but I feel like if sports don't really come back this year, or if it's just smaller seasons, I feel like some athletes will opt to not go to university this year and do a grade 13 to see if they could get a scholarship somewhere. So I feel like the competition next year could be very solid. A lot of grade 13s in the league.
And with the grade 13 point, I do think that a lot of people will come back and, academically upgrade their marks, but also try to do sports on the side, because sports is what brings us all together. We saw that with the HSSAA Tier 1 Championship, where literally all of Hayden packed into that arena. or at least the majority of the school did. It was disappointing not to
then.
see everyone in there, but it was a great atmosphere. And, I couldn't think of a game being played at that high of a level without fans,
Yeah, no, exactly. Personally, unfortunately, I was not at the game. I had a chemistry test. So
yeah, apparently like every science student was just screwed that day.
Yeah, I had a chemistry test, but from the videos I saw of the game and the goal by Cam Smith that was scored, or Smythe or Smith. Smythe was the other Cam.
Yeah.
Just the crowd erupting after the goal. It's electric. And you can definitely tell, even though it was a close game, the Hayden players definitely fed off of the intensity from the crowd, and that probably hurt Nelson late in the game because they didn't really have too much going for themselves.
How do you think that, a team will feed off the crowdless energy or, the injected crowd for going into the play-in rounds?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult because when the regular playoff starts, you got the President's Trophy team. They got home advantage throughout the whole playoffs, and that's a big thing. Having 3 or 4 of the 7 games in your home rink, it can go a long way. And now that's kind of been lost, the home ice advantage. There was they have like a little thing, so the home team gets like the last change.
But that's about it.
But that's about it. You don't get the fans. And for teams like Vegas, Toronto, even in the playoffs, it's electric. Like Boston, like teams that just have passionate fan bases.
Nashville, you got to mention Nashville because with their was it Section 303 that starts those chants?
Yeah, Nashville fans are in it too. I mean, it's definitely that advantage is lost, and we're gonna see a lot potentially could be more upsets. It's a lot more even of a playing field just because there's no home ice advantage, and there's nothing to really read off of. It's just pretty much your own team and your own momentum that you carry into the game. Like when a team scores a goal, when a team would score a goal in like a OT game last year in the playoffs, you can hear the first people to react are the players on the ice and the players on the bench, and we'll be able to hear that a lot more and a lot more clearly this year. And I think it'll be an interesting thing.
Well, see, going with that point, St. Louis, when they won the cup, all their players were like, fuck yeah, we just effing won and all that stuff. And then I heard from Greg Wisniewski on Twitter, he tweeted out saying like, oh, there's going to be like a 3-minute muted part during the Stanley Cup final when that team wins because they have that 7-second delay of, to mute the players' curse language. So that could be something that's a legit possibility.
I think definitely on the side of NHL fans that have parents that are parents with very small kids, like sure, maybe you're going to not want that, maybe not want your kids to hear it. But for me, as a sports fan, if a team wins the cup, I want to hear them passionately running around, screaming, because I'd be doing the same. And I think a lot more authenticity is going to come out of players, and a lot more personality is going to be shown during the play-in and the playoffs.
And with that personality, they are going down the NBA route with the attire being casual. If you were an NHL player in the bubble, what would you wear on game day?
I mean, for the teams I've played for in my life, it's typically been like a formal, like dress shirt and tie attire wear. And I think that's, in terms of sports, that's my ideal if the whole team is wearing that attire. But I would rather a lot more casual if it was going to be half and half. I would rather have all my players in casual attire and half of them in suits and half of them. But for me, I mean, I don't know, because you're living in the bubble. You got limited time. You got limited clothes, I guess, unless you're PJ Tucker, who brought like 200 pairs of shoes to the NBA.
Yeah, I saw that.
Crazy. I mean, I don't really know what I would wear. Maybe just my Oilers t-shirt, roll up to the game.
Just in a bucket hat as well.
Just make it work, And it's interesting. I think it's going to be a good thing in the long run for the NHL because the NHL, I think as a sport, it can sell. Hockey is a very entertaining sport, but the thing that it lacks compared to other leagues is definitely the personality. Like NBA players, they have their own brands, they have their own shoes more than NHL players would, and I feel like having that expansion would definitely help broaden the viewership of the league.
Do you think that the NHL should incorporate like an MLB's players nickname, like on how they have like Players Weekend? The MLB players can create their own nicknames and stick it on the back of their jersey. Do you think that's something that the NHL could look forward to? I
mean, NHL, like a big thing for like pretty diehard fans is typical nicknames, but for a lot of casual fans, they wouldn't know that, and I think that would definitely make the league more exciting. I guess I can tie this, but when you say putting the nickname on the back, I don't know if you know, but 2 nights ago, Ethan Bear.
Yeah, he had Cree
symbols. Cree lettering.
Yeah.
On the back of his Oilers jersey, and it sold like a bunch of jerseys. It went out of sale, and now they had to do online shopping for the Oilers. I think that's really interesting, and it made me think like, what if a Japanese player was in the league and they could have the Japanese writing on the back of their jerseys? I feel like that'd be a lot. I feel like that could be something pretty cool moving forward, and just like more customization in terms of that, with players being comfortable with what they want to put.
And you're also reaching to that next level of audience, right? Because if you have Japanese letters on the back of your jersey, you're going to reach out to Japan, right? And get those fans.
I mean, yeah, right now it's pretty heavy in North America. They've been doing like the global series. I think that's been helping for the NHL. It has. I don't know how much success it's had in China for the preseason, but countries like Sweden and Finland, it seems to be pretty successful. And now you got a bunch of players coming, and 40 years from now, I'm scared the Team Sweden roster might be able to compete with Team Canada more than I'd like in the Olympics.
With these playoffs, they are the most healthiest we've ever seen. And honestly, I think that's what it has, it's hyped up because of that. Do you agree?
I mean, yeah, definitely. Players are healthy. They've been given a 3-month break. They've had training camp for sure, but the difference with these playoffs is the first round of a regular playoff, it's some of the best hockey of the season, really. You got guys who are excited, trying to win the first round. Once you get your feet into the playoffs, you can do anything. So coming off training camp, these players haven't played a real game except for these exhibition games. I feel like it could be sloppy for a bit. And for injury-wise, you hate to see it, but I do believe that there's potentially going to be some injury with this, just coming off of 3 months not really playing. But I think as a sports fan, looking into this optimistically, you got to be excited for every roster to be as healthy as they can, because teams in the past have had amazing seasons and lost because of health issues when the season's at its end.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that for sure. I really disagree with the NHL's ruling on the unable to participate or unfit to play rule, whatever the specific wording is. That's just me. I'm a traditionalist. Pre-COVID, we knew about everyone's injury. And now with this whole coronavirus, I do understand there does have to be that fine line of confidentiality, which everyone talks about. But, I disagree with the rule.
Yeah. I mean, it's made for a lot of controversy and uncertainty, because Pasternak, for a couple practices, he was unfit to play. And he seems to be good and back on the ice now, but maybe that would have drawn some concern for players or for fans, because they didn't really know what was going up with him, and they wanted a lot more information on what was going on. But it has to be confidential. Just in these bubbles, these players have to be protected, I guess.
I think that the team that's going to win the Stanley Cup this year, and this goes for any league during this coronavirus pandemic, is the team that stays the healthiest. Would you agree?
It's definitely going to benefit them a lot. A lot of the NHL rosters, a lot of the top teams are complete teams, but you take away one piece and it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, I agree for sure. We can look at like Colorado. I think that if you take away Cale Makar on the back end, like that whole defense is just it's not good. It's not a top tier defense that people should be aware of.
Yeah, you lose a guy like that, it's tough. Speaking of Colorado, they've had some injuries to a bunch of players this season. Landeskog, Mikko Rantanen missed time, even Makar missed time, and McKinnon had an injury near the tail end, but the coronavirus kind of saved him because he had that 3-month break. So hopefully they can stay healthy, and I do think they can make some noise. If they
Who would you say is your dark horse for the Stanley Cup?
My dark horse for the Stanley Cup, I mean, I want to say Edmonton. I like Edmonton. Good, solid roster. I think it's not complete yet. But what I think about the Oilers, I think they do have a contending roster, but it's not there yet. Give it a couple years and they'll be better. Dark horse candidates, anyone that comes in from the play-in, I guess, playing that 5-game series and then playing a team that just played a round robin can be somewhat of an advantage because you're kind of getting used to that playoff hockey before they are. But for a main dark horse, I think a team that isn't one of like the top teams, like a Boston or a Tampa or a St. Louis, I honestly think, and I'm riding on their momentum from the end of the season, Philadelphia has a really solid roster. And come the playoffs with Oscar Lindblom on their back, they're going to be using that as motivation. I definitely think they can make some noise. And they were playing great this year, and the system that Alain Vigneault, the coach from Quebec, I'm sure you'd want him under the Canadiens bench, but he's been very good in Philadelphia.
Well, I think that my dark horse would have to be Arizona, just like what they've been through these past couple weeks with John Chaika completely. Like, they literally call John Chaika a quitter, but I believe that I wouldn't call John Chaika a quitter if he quit for a better job, you know? If he was going to get paid more and get more responsibilities, that's just not my definition of a quitter. But, Arizona plays a great defensive style game. The series against Nashville, this play-in round is documented as going to be a tight defensive series. It won't be as offensive as people may think. That's just my dark horse. You got OEL on the backhand. You got Barrett Hayton, who's probably going to play a couple games. You have Clayton Keller.
Absolutely.
How can we not talk about Clayton Keller? Signed a big
Phil the Thrill.
Yeah, exactly. You got Phil the Thrill, who's going to be shooting down his right shot. He has a wicked right shot. Let me tell you about that. Down that right wing, it's crazy.
They need him to step up for sure.
He had an off year this year. Let's just mention that. It was probably one of his worst years. If he wants to redeem himself, this playoffs is definitely a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, going from playing with Malkin and Crosby to Nick Schmaltz and Vinny Hinostroza probably isn't the most convenient of changes, but I think once he finds his footing, I mean, the relationship he has with Rick Tocchet, that's the reason he ended up in Arizona. But I definitely think he's an intimidating presence. I know playing against him as an Oilers fan, every time he gets an open look at a shot, it has a chance at going in, and that's a big part of the reason why the Penguins won 2 cups.
Why do you think why do you think that John Chaika quit on the Coyotes?
I mean, it's tough. I think a lot of things are going to come out as time goes on, but definitely the pursuit of a better opportunity. I think just that Arizona organization in general, it's a tough one as a sports fan and as an NHL fan. Hockey in Arizona, it's just a tough sell. And he's made some moves to try to make the team more successful. Like on paper, they're probably a lot better than they were when he came in. But just the on-ice success and probably just disagreements with other people in the organization caused him to look in the mirror and say that he could probably find himself in a better front office, and that's why he decided to leave or quit or however you want to put it, leave the Coyotes, I guess.
Yeah, he also made the move for Taylor Hall, which was, big for the Coyotes team because, when you're in such a low-end market such as Arizona, getting Taylor Hall will bring fans to the arena.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, a guy like that, it's huge. And another reason that could have led to the quitting was the negotiations between Hall's agent and Chaika. There probably wasn't a whole lot. I don't believe Taylor Hall wants to be in Arizona long term. I believe he wants to go to a team that can pay him a lot and that can compete, because Taylor Hall, he's been given the play-in this year, but other than that, in his 9-year career, he's only made the playoffs once. So that's a guy that wants a lot of success. But making that move, it was definitely interesting. And at the time of the move, they were top team in Pacific. Darcy Kemper was playing like a Vezina, and it looked like a really good move at the time. And whether or not I think it was a good move or not, this play-in round will tell. Because if not, I think Taylor Hall's ready to leave.
And do you think that Taylor Hall would end up signing with Edmonton? Because how crazy of a scenario would that be?
I mean, it would come full circle and make the Adam Larson trade look maybe a little bit less bad. Definitely having a guy like that on the left side to play with either McDavid or Draisaitl. He had a little bit of chemistry with Draisaitl in the time that they had together. It would be great if he could come back. However, we got guys coming up. Yamamoto is going to want money. It's going to be tough to bring him in. Personally, I think the team that he probably goes to, and it's odd because I've been saying that he wants to go to a contender, a playoff team, but I think a team that has money to sign him, LA, going and living in LA for him. LA is a nice place to live. A lot of players go there. It's an attractive place to live. They have somewhat of a bright future. They got the number 2 pick this year, bringing a guy like Byfield.
I think Stützle's going to.
It depends who you want, but they definitely are an option. And I'd say right now that's my front runner for Hall to go there. But Edmonton's up there too. You got to think teams like maybe St. Louis, if they don't re-sign Pietrangelo, they can try to bring him in. It's definitely going to be an interesting free agency. And I was looking at a list the other day, and there's actually some underrated pieces. Pietrangelo and Hall jump off the page for sure.
But there's also Braden Holtby.
Yeah, you got guys like Braden Holtby. Like, he was phenomenal only 2 years ago in the playoffs. He was a 2-time Vezina winner within the last decade. I think the team that gets him, he's going to make an impact. You also got guys like maybe Toffoli if he doesn't re-sign in Vancouver. However, I think they like him enough. And guys like Justin Schultz, I don't think Pittsburgh has the cap to keep him, and he's a solid guy that can come in and play in anyone's top 4.
Well, speaking of cap room, the Carolina Hurricanes didn't really have any cap room to sign the old-time famous John Forsland. It's hockey, baby. It's just crazy to see such a great commentator when you flip on a Tuesday night, Hurricanes game. He's probably not going to return as the voice of them anymore.
I know it's tough. And personally, due to whatever it may be, I haven't watched as many Hurricanes games within the last decade as other teams. But for me, I'm familiar with the voice of specific teams that I like. And for Hurricanes fans, he's been with them since 1995 broadcasting. He's been with the franchise since 1991. So it's definitely saying goodbye to a legend. And right now they say he's going to work for NBC in the play-in just because he wants work. But I do believe from the quotes I've seen and the whole situation, I think he wants to remain loyal. I feel like he if the contract was there, would want to stay in Carolina. But it's just definitely an unfortunate series of events what happened.
Yeah, I would, as just a casual fan, I don't watch as many Carolina Hurricanes Hurricanes games, I should say. And just hearing his voice, he's been around the league for a long time. Everyone recognizes his voice, and having that spot empty and not having it filled by John Forsland, it doesn't add up.
Yeah, and Edmonton's always my number one, but my dad and brother are both big Buffalo fans. So anything, Rick Jeanneret is as loved as some of the players on the team. That guy's a legend within the team. And obviously, Carolina hockey, there are some fans there, especially within the last 2 years with the storm surge. They've made a lot more interesting. So it's definitely going to be a big loss if he can't come back, because I know as Sabres fan, that might be my Eastern Conference team if anything were to happen. And especially it's just sort of like a messy ending. It's not like he's retiring on his own terms. It's just like there wasn't a deal to get done.
And speaking on that RJ point, I believe it actually is his final season upcoming. Rick Jenneret is going to retire after the next season, and it's going to be some big shoes to fill for the next guy that's upcoming.
For sure. Rick Jenneret, you think of any, and probably I'm more familiar, and I guess you, because your dad's a Sabres fan as well, more familiar with a lot of Sabres highlights, but you think of Sabre highlights, like you think of Mayday and you think of the cup run and stuff like that. Rick Jenneret just ties along with it in that voice. So it's definitely going to be big shoes to fill. I believe it was this season or last season he had the incident in the hospital. So I believe that he loves hockey, he loves the Sabres, and he's passionate, but he's well-deserved a retirement. For sure.
Speaking of commentators that are moving on, Chris Cuthbert signed a deal with Sportsnet, moving on from TSN and his duties CFL on TSN. That's a big name for Sportsnet to bring in because their TV ratings haven't been the greatest. So I just believe that it is a deal to try and increase those views. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. They're trying to make moves, and Sportsnet, I mean, when I was younger, I always grew up, TSN was the sports network.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You'd wake up before a good old 9:15 start at CRB, and you'd watch the Jay and Dan show from 8 to 9. It's just, especially with you and me living so close to the school, you could be there right till the end of it. But in recent years, and I think a lot of it's partially due to the deal with the NHL and Sportsnet, they've definitely made strides and are making a name for themselves to potentially surpass TSN for the number one sports network in Canada.
I just think it'll be weird if the CFL does return because they might fold because of this whole coronavirus because they haven't been officially getting aid from the government in which they have asked. But hypothetically speaking, if the CFL does continue, it would be weird not having a game that's called by Chris Cuthbert because he does CFL games weekly.
Yeah. He's a big CFL guy. And speaking of CFL, this whole coronavirus thing has definitely put their season on hold. And it's interesting. They're attempting potentially maybe doing like a bubble format in Saskatchewan, I've seen was proposed. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But the CFL thing, I think, like for him, he's such an iconic voice. He did all the great cups pretty much through the last however many years he was with TSN. But when I was doing research on him, it said that after Winnipeg won the Grey Cup last fall, sadly, against the Hamilton Tiger Cats, that marked he had done the play-by-play for every single team winning the Grey Cup, and Winnipeg was the last team. So that's just an iconic guy, and you can see the longevity in his career. And obviously a 9-team league isn't the biggest, but to have announced the championship of all those is big, and another iconic voice. But another iconic part of his career was the golden goal. That's probably what he's known for worldwide more than potentially CFL. And a big part of him going to Sportsnet is because he wants to be able to broadcast hockey again, NHL games, and that's something he couldn't do with TSN. So he definitely prioritized hockey over football because he's 62 and Sportsnet has the NHL rights for another 6 years. So he'd be almost 70 when that contract's up. So he's got to prioritize what he wants now and see what he can get. But I think it'll be a good addition to Sportsnet, and I'll be excited to hearing him doing some hockey games for sure.
Same here, man. Same here. I am excited to, finally hear his voice again, especially calling hockey, because I think that's what he's really good at. Well, we mentioned CFL and how good he is at that. He's called like you mentioned, all 9 championship games for the 9 winning teams. He's just a great commentator all around.
Yeah. Both you and I know a good commentator can make or break a football game. Hopefully the CFL can find a good replacement. I swear if they sign Booger McFarland somehow, I'm going to jump off of a bridge. But, yeah, commentating, it's underrated. When there's a good commentator, it's just a part of the game. You're kind of feeling it. But when it's a bad commentator, you can definitely see it. And for sports fans like you and I, we know the player names, we know things. But for casual fans, a commentator can help a lot telling.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Telling them about stats, who's having a good stretch of games, who's an X factor, and it just goes a long way. And I'm definitely going to be sad to see him leave for the CFL because big Ticats fan, watch a lot of Ticats games, but definitely I think hearing him doing NHL games will be a good thing.
With this whole coronavirus pandemic, the NHL, NBA, and MLS have both all agreed to do the bubble, which, in turn has made their coronavirus cases very low. I believe NBA is under 5 or maybe under 2 or 0. I don't know. NHL reported 0 the other day. MLS has also reported 0, but the NFL and MLB are both in a complete turmoil right now. If you could agree with me there. Marlins are now at 19 COVID cases. The Phillies just got 2 positive COVID cases, I think today or yesterday. So the Phillies and Toronto Blue Jays season has been postponed this weekend. And then the NFL, they're going to go traveling. What could you do? I think bubble is the way you have to go.
I mean, from the MLS, NBA, and NHL, I think I'm not too familiar with who the commissioner is of the MLS. But
I'm not too. I don't either.
Adam Silver for the NBA and Bettman, who shocked us and actually did a really good job with this. They're level-headed and
they understand.
And the bubble has proven to be good. You got guys like Goodell and MLB.
Rob Manfred.
Yeah, Manfred. Manfred. I don't know. That's been definitely a interesting.
Manfred has completely solidified himself as the worst commissioner in all of sports.
Yeah, and with games like baseball and football, I feel like it might be a little bit harder to have a bubble just because the rosters are so much larger than that of the NHL and NBA. But it's
the stats are the stats. Like if you're a player, one of the reasons David Price opted out was because he knows that there's going to be positive COVID cases. Okay, yes, positive COVID cases are fine, but when you get 19 of them on one single team,
especially after they just played a season too, it's like that. You need to have control, or else it can spread right away. With the NBA, NHL, knock on wood, but right now they seem to be moving along smoothly, and they're going to have resumptions of seasons. But with the NFL, is there going to be a season? With the MLB, what's going to happen to the rest of the season? You got teams like the Marlins and the Phillies and the Yankees who are missing out on games now, and are they going to have to make it up with doubleheaders later on in the season?
I think you got to go winning percentage. That's the best way to do it. You can't really, reschedule these games. They're playing 60 games in 66 days. The grind for the players is tough. The mental grind, physical grind, mental grind. You have to factor all these things in. And, you can't make this stuff up. This stuff is crazy.
Yeah, it's unprecedented the times we're living in. And short-term impacts, we're seeing them now, but long-term impacts, it's changed the rest of our lives pretty much just from this one outbreak. The way we live, it's going to be a lot more cautious, and the way sports are too. It's kind of miraculous the way that they've been able to deal with it.
I didn't think they were returning this year. I was a firm believer that everything was getting canceled. Cancel the season. I'm very surprised they're back.
Yeah, because they've made amazing strides, but without what they've done, it's really hard to resume the season, and it'd be a lot easier to just call it and try to have a successful season next year.
Because there will be positive cases. I understand that, but if you can at least mitigate it at 5, that's fine. But when you increase it, when the numbers just keep increasing to 19 and then almost 20, it's out of hand. Yeah,
for sure. In small numbers, it still can spread for sure, but it's a lot easier to protect and quarantine.
Control,
players. But when it grows, and especially with the Marlins now, Florida, Miami's it's like a hot spot, and that Marlins team, it's going to be tough for them to do a full recovery.
But I should say, the Marlins didn't even play Miami. And to further my point, it's so weird and wacky about this because, the Blue Jays were visiting the Rays the same weekend this whole thing happened. And, none of those teams, none of the Rays or Jays players, staff, management tested even positive. So, all of it wasn't done in Philly and Atlanta because Marlins season, they had a couple of exhibition games against the Atlanta Braves. And, that's when they started to test positive. So it's crazy, to think about, okay, well, Miami's a hot spot, jump to conclusion. But actually, if you look at the season, they didn't even play there. So, it's crazy.
It's such a hard thing to predict, for sure.
It really is. Let's go with let's jump back to the NHL here and start with really the playoffs and why we're discussing this. With the play-in rounds, like what's your outlook for each team?
My outlook for each team?
Yeah.
So
we could do a select few.
I mean, just give me a team and I'll give you my thoughts on them. I got some notes on each team and what I think they can do and whether or not they can make any noise.
Well, let's start with Dallas. I would like to.
Dallas. So Dallas, I only watched their exhibition game today for a bit, but honestly, they were missing Seguin. I'll give them that, but they didn't look really good against Nashville. Nashville beat them 2-0. And I don't know. I do see them as a dark horse just because maybe people aren't talking about them as much. But last year they were a goal away from being St. Louis.
Yeah, until Patty Maroon scored.
Yeah, they have a very similar roster to that with the addition of Joe Pavelski, who's a very good, just two-way guy, a solid center, good veteran presence. And then Ben Bishop, he's one of the top goalies in the league,
And he's freaking massive, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's intimidating. Of course, skill is more than size, but I'm sure you've been aware from your time playing hockey, playing against a goalie on the other team that doesn't even fill the net it's a lot less intimidating than playing against, a brick wall kind of guy.
I must agree with that there. I've had multiple experiences where that definitely checks the box. I would also like to talk about Florida, who also I think is another dark horse.
Yeah, I mean, Florida, I have them as dark horse, but I think their success completely depends on Sergei Bobrovsky. I think they have a solid enough roster. I think, forward-wise, they got pieces like Huberdeau and Barkov, Hoffman, Dadonov. Those are solid guys that can produce offense. Defensively, maybe not the best blue line in the league. Yandel's not bad. Ekblad, say what you want about him. He can play pretty good minutes. But Sergei Bobrovsky, he was paid $10 million a year last offseason, and he deserved it at the time. The way he played with Columbus was amazing, but he wasn't that this year. But I do think if he returns to that form, they can definitely win a couple rounds for sure.
And I do think about that contract, the emergence of Spencer Knight will be coming in the next couple of years. So they're going to be paying Bobrovsky, in the final 3-4 years of his contract, $10 million, which is probably what the Canadians will run into with Caden Primo.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you have arguably the best defense or goaltending prospect in the NHL and a guy like Spencer Knight, and you're already paying your starting goalie $10 million and he still has 6 years left on that. Definitely not a great situation. In my opinion, goalies are so
hit or miss. They're hit or miss.
They're hit or miss. You got the elite of the elite guys that can be solid, but other than that, you can get a solid season out of a lot of goalies.
Like a Darcy Kemper, everyone underrated him.
You even look at a guy like Andrew Hammond. He was the number one goalie in the league for a couple weeks, but fell off completely. You got guys that just there's the Hall of Fame goalies. They have good careers, but other than that, going into any given season, it's you're unsure of what a goalie's going to do. So I feel like obviously you're a Habs fan, you might have a different opinion than I do, but I feel like putting a lot of money into goaltending. I would rather have money put into a depth forward or defenseman than pay a really good goalie a lot of money just because. And Florida and Montreal, and now Tampa Bay is going to be paying Vasilevsky. They got a lot of money tied into goaltending, and it's hard when your goalie's making $10 million to fill roles other places.
Well, I think Montreal's chances to win the Stanley Cup here are just they're slim to none. And honestly, it'll be surprising to see if Montreal actually does win a game. Obviously, they didn't have much firepower against the Leafs, as we saw. They did play sloppy, but every team played sloppy in their exhibition game, I
Yeah.
think. It's just because that no one really cared. No one had anything to play for. Once this playing round starts, everyone's going to, amp up their intensity.
I mean, I hope so. If you're getting hockey for 10 hours a day, you want it to be entertaining for sure. And speaking of Montreal, I think Carey Price is the only way that they have any success, whether it be in the play-in round or potentially past the play-in round. It's unfortunate because they are playing a team like Pittsburgh, who I think is too good not to beat Montreal. But Montreal is one of those teams, like, because they're the 24th team.
They're going to pull like an LA Kings.
I mean, they could. But after the draft lottery, the play-in got the number 1 pick. Definitely makes things a whole lot more interesting. And teams like Montreal,
who has no business being in this year's playoffs, none at all.
No business being in this year's playoffs. It's not a bad thing if they lose in the first round.
It really isn't, because you do have that 1 in 8 shot, right? Yeah, 1 in 8 shot at Lafreniere.
It's going to be interesting. As soon as it was the number 1 pick, I was actually in a place that didn't have any internet, so I completely missed the draft lottery. I missed the draft lottery, and for me, I don't like that because that's something I like to watch. I just like the suspense and just seeing who can fall where. But when I finally got back into internet, I turned on my data and I saw Kings number 2, play-in round number 1, and I said, "Holy! The number 1 pick is going to be a play-in round team." And then I just went through each team, and I was like, Alexis Lafreniere is going to be on one of those teams, and it's crazy. And the only team, to be honest, where I really see like it fitting well is Montreal.
It's a storybook ending, because think about it. A, Montreal got the draft canceled. They were supposed to host this year. And B, he's a French Canadian. I mean, those two aspects right there tie the story together.
For me, I mean, Montreal is not one of my favorite teams in the league. I am an Oilers fan, but I do like to see Canadian teams being successful. And I think gaining a guy like Lafreniere, especially to Montreal, that would benefit them a lot.
They do need, a top winger or just someone to entice free agents to sign there. We know the struggles that Montreal has with signing free agents, because there's not really anyone to, we have Carey Price and Shea Weber, but, they have no one else. They don't have really a foundation, right? The foundation's not there quite yet. It will be there in the future, not there quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, they got good forward prospects. Suzuki's played a full season. He looked great.
They have Caulfield coming up, Paling.
Cole Caulfield. You got a couple. I still think Lekkonen's potentially a solid piece. I like him.
Armia's huge. You see his PK.
Armia's great on the penalty kill.
Same with Byron.
I mean, you got a pretty young forward core, but I think what they've been missing probably since even Saku Koivu, you could say, is just that pure number 1 guy that can carry an offense on any given night. And I think Lafreniere for Montreal would be good for not only the Canadians but the NHL in general.
I think so as well. But, and also going back to your point, like seeing all the teams, it's ridiculous thinking like, okay, Toronto's going to get him, Edmonton, Pittsburgh. Yeah. Like you're seeing all these superstar teams, and Toronto doesn't even need him. Edmonton doesn't need him. Pittsburgh doesn't need him. I got to think that although it's exciting to see a play-in round team win the draft lottery, like it should have went to one of the teams that bottomed out.
Yeah. I wanted him going to Detroit, Ottawa, maybe a team that needed him. But now you look at teams like Winnipeg, like Nashville. They don't really need a guy like Alexis Lafreniere. And speaking of Winnipeg, I think it was it Slot G or whatever that won the draft lottery?
Yeah. So it was their pick.
It was Winnipeg's pick. And just thinking of adding a guy like Alexis Lafreniere to an already loaded offense, with guys like Scheifele, Wheeler, Laine, Kyle is phenomenal, Ehlers even. Like, it would just be crazy. And there's only, like, I don't know. Other than Montreal, there's no team where I'm like, yeah, he deserves to go there or he fits there.
Well, I'll end it off here. Nolan, what's your Stanley Cup final prediction? I got to go with Colorado and Boston.
Colorado and Boston. All right, that's not bad. Who do you have winning? Colorado?
Yeah, I got Colorado winning. I just think that with the emergence of Nathan MacKinnon, with everyone being healthy on that roster, like you mentioned, they suffered Gabriel Landeskog suffered an injury. Mikko Rantanen suffered an injury. McKinnon's back to his normal self. Makar's going to have a superb, playoffs. He's going to win the Conn Smythe and the Calder Trophy. He's going to bring in those two awards and then the Stanley Cup as well.
That would be I'd like that. McKinnon definitely deserves a cup at some point. I'm going to say in 7 games, the Edmonton Oilers beat the Montreal Canadiens in the Stanley Cup final.
Okay, that's some bias.
No, I'm not going to say that. There's so many solid rosters. I'm going to go with maybe a little bit of a controversial pick. I'm going to say that the Tampa Bay Lightning finally exercise their demons, and they win the Stanley Cup, and they beat the Las Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup.
Oh, that's an interesting choice.
Just listen. Vegas shouldn't be as good as they are. They're only in their 3rd year, and as an Oilers fan, when we play them a couple times a season, it's just tough. The last time we played them in the season, we got shut out, and it's just a horrible feeling to get shut out as a sports fan. I just really like their roster. I think St. Louis is really good.
Tampa's got to cup at some point, man. They have to cup.
Like, my opinion with Tampa now and the Dodgers of the MLB is if the Dodgers never win a World Series with this team, and if Tampa never wins a cup with this team, those are going to be some of the best teams of all time to have never won their championship in respect.
I agree. I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
Actually, one final point. We didn't touch on the Seattle Kraken. How cool is that?
Do you like the name?
I love the name. I thought it was better than the rumored Sockeyes or, Totems was another name. I did like the Totems, but I think Kraken kind of ties it all together.
I mean, I definitely think there probably could have been a better name that I would have liked better. But from the short list that Seattle came out with, I believe it was a year and a bit ago, I do like Kraken. And I think for an expansion team coming in, Vegas, because they're from Vegas, sold because it was that exciting. But a team from Seattle, they need to have this exciting kind of branding. And I think Kraken is really doing that. And it's surpassed Vegas for expansion team sales. I think that's a lot better than them having a more generic name like the Emeralds or like you said, the Sockeyes or something like that. I believe Kraken's definitely exciting. And another name that was potentially with the Seattle Seals or the Seals.
I never heard that.
It was in the short list. And a point that was made by the hockey guy on YouTube was that you can't be the Sea Lions or the Seals because your rival is going to be the Canucks, and Orcas, which is the Canucks logo, they eat seals and sea lions. However, now you got an Orca versus the Kraken. Seattle's looking favorable in that matchup for sure.
How do you like their whole logo and their whole branding?
I mean, their logo is grown on me.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I like how they stuck with the traditional S because the Seattle Metropolitans was the first American team to win the Stanley Cup in, early 1900s. So I think sticking with that and making it having the tentacle on it, I think it's really nice. I love the secondary logo, the anchor with the Space Needle in it.
Yeah.
And I think their colors, it's unique, and I personally like it. It's good as an expansion team. They went with their own kind of color set.
It would be interesting to see because I'm pretty sure the expansion rules would be different because, Vegas did take full advantage and the league did realize that it was a tad bit unfair.
Yeah. I mean, it's so tough for Seattle. I don't think they're going to be able to compete off the bat like Vegas did. It's crazy, though. Every team has to give up players except for Vegas, and Vegas is a top team in the league, so that they're taking advantage of that. But I think even looking at some of the players they can get, I think they'll have a solid enough roster. But for me, if I was the GM of an expansion team, I'm not looking at competing year one. I'm looking at competing down the road, getting picks, building more like building a good prospect pool. Like you look at Vegas. Vegas had 3 first-rounders in their first year. They have Cody Glass, who's now playing on their team, and then they had Nick Suzuki and Brandstrom, who are in Montreal and Ottawa. So they took a completely different route, and they traded their prospects for good players. And I think that's what Vegas needed to do. In a city like Vegas, being a good team, a successful team in year one definitely helped them because now they've built that fan base. It'll be interesting to see how Vegas brings in fans if they're not a successful team.
Well, I'm pretty sure, as we see with Buffalo, like their whole arena is empty. So you got to imagine that if Vegas does, go on this 5-year drought, hypothetically, or when they do, fans won't show up because fans want success.
Yeah, and especially in a city like Las Vegas, that's such a exciting city. And going to like a Vegas game right now is a good thing because they're a good hockey team. But I feel like if they're not successful, like say you put a team like the Detroit Red Wings from this season, you put that in Vegas, a lot of people, like the tourists in Vegas and even the locals, it's gonna be easy to find more interesting things to do.
For sure. Well, I'd like to thank Nolan Thode, the NHL Pagcast Analyst, for joining me on today's Pagcast. Thank you again, Nolan.
No worries. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Pags. I hope we can do this again sometime soon. I hope the Oilers beat the Blackhawks. I hope we have a great playoff. And we'll probably hop on for a recap Pagcast at some point in time.